Hey guys, my name is Savannah and we're back in Planet Zoo today, but we are somewhere just a little bit different. We are not in any of my projects. Mr. Estan Wolf was kind enough to let me have his Lost Creek Zoo file, so I jumped in a little while ago and revamped this habitat that we're working on here. This is for the Aldabra giant tortoises, and I also added another small animal enclosure to the front entrance of this zoo. That video will come out in just a little bit, but today we are focusing on the Aldabra giant tortoise. I have followed Lost Creek from its first inception, first builds, and I love Estan's style and eye for creativity. He has a wonderful throw spaghetti at the wall, see what sticks, and he's able to pack an incredible amount of detail into such small spaces where your eye has so much to look at. So it's something that I really don't do well myself, I feel, and he has nailed it. He is the absolute king of that kind of style. So I wanted to get in here and take that kind of style, the materials that Estan normally uses, the kind of rustic wood, lots of greenery, rocks and stonework that he is known for using, but also bring in my eye for a little bit of realism. Having been in the animal industry for quite a while, I have never personally worked with Aldabra giant tortoises, but I've worked with other giant tortoises, and so I have somewhat of an idea on needs and husbandry related things. So I wanted to see if I could combine a little bit of that again with Estan's style. So we're starting off with a cute little cottage cabin for these guys. I recently went on a vacation to visit my boyfriend's parents, and where they live, they have a small little zoo called the Charles Paddock Zoo. The vlog and full walkthrough of that zoo is on the channel if you're interested in seeing it. It was super inspiring for me because it is very much a very small zoo. And their giant tortoises have a little kind of cottage like this that's all made of stone. It doesn't look exactly like this, but I feel like I got it pretty close, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. I love that I'm able to use that little plastic door that comes with the walkthrough. It's not an aviary yet because technically we don't have birds, but the walkthrough exhibit that we can use for the bats and the butterflies. Planet Zoo actually just put that door as a separate piece, and that's what those little hanging plastic pieces are on the door of this cottage. Now, the Aldabra giant tortoises can't actually go inside of it because unfortunately the little opening is too small for their hip boxes. But if they walk next to it, it's kind of the right size that it should be if they were real tortoises. So I figured I would go for realism over having them actually be able to use this little house. But this would be the area that they could go inside, or keepers could keep them back there. They do end up having a shelter in their actual exhibit as well, so they don't have to go into this little house in order to get out of the weather or the sun or whatever they want to do. But it's there if they want it. I'm really happy with how this little exhibit came out. It really only took me about an hour and a half to complete this part of the build. I also, not included in this video, did go through and kind of clean up and make it match with this habitat, the kind of entrance information area. So I did a little bit of detailing there as well, but I didn't include that in this video. I want Estan to be able to show off some of this stuff on his own channel without me spoiling it all. So if you're interested to see what else I did, hopefully he'll have a video up very soon kind of showing all this off, going in real time as he does, and you can see many of the details that I added. But essentially this little exhibit is the same footprint as the old exhibit, and unfortunately the Aldabra giant tortoises and many tortoise species exhibits are relatively plain. So one of the challenging things that I had with this exhibit was to make it interesting to look at, because if you look at real life tortoise exhibits, they're pretty much all dirt because tortoises will just eat everything, they'll crush everything by walking on it, and so they're really not all that interesting. So I had to add little bits of area with rocks and a little bit of foliage that probably wouldn't be there in real life, but it gives your eyes something to look at and makes it more than just kind of a dirt enclosure. Now, as I like to try to do with almost all of my videos, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the Aldabra giant tortoise. And I don't know why that's so hard for me to say, but I can feel the tongue twister trying to mess up when I say the name of the tortoise. So I'll do my very best, but if I mess up, I apologize. The Aldabra giant tortoise is the second largest species of tortoise, second only to the Galapagos tortoise. They have high domed shells that are dark brown or gray. Hind legs are cylindrical and like the legs of an elephant. The anterior surface of the forelegs are covered by thick, often bony scales. Toes are short and two-jointed. Snake-like neck and legs are retractable, so they do go inside their shell. The very small pointed head is covered with scales. High domed gray shell can be measured up to 56 inches in length, and males can weigh up to 560 pounds, while females average about 350 pounds. Aldabra giant tortoises are herbivores. They graze on low-lying grasses and herbs using their beaks to clip at the vegetation. This constant grazing has put evolutionary pressure, on the vegetation, causing creation of tortoise turf, which is a mixture of low-growing plants and herbs that grow their seeds low to the ground as to avoid being eaten by the tortoises. They also browse on woody plants, which they can reach with their long necks up to 3 feet high. They occasionally feed on small invertebrates. As the largest animal on the Aldabra atoll, it fills a similar role to elephants. They will alter their habitat in search for food, knocking over small trees and shrubs and creating pathways used by other animals. They are also seed distributors, as the seeds they eat pass through their digestive system and are then scattered and grow. So that's a little bit about the Aldabra giant tortoise. That is from the Oakland Zoo. It's not written incredibly well, so I was trying to paraphrase just a little bit to make it a little bit easier to read, but you can go check it out for yourself if you do want to read more about them. Going back to the build, I ended up leaving this in. As I say in many of my videos, I never know what's going to inspire you, and even if I don't use something in the final product, I like to at least try to keep it in the build so that you can see it. I absolutely love this fence that I put together. However, once I was done with it, I really looked at it and I felt like I was going a little bit too modern for Estan's style of park. So I end up taking that out and redoing that fencing to kind of better match the style of the tortoise habitat altogether, and using those habitat climbing logs, because obviously the tortoises can't climb, so we don't have to worry about using non-climbable things, and I end up making the outer fence out of that instead. And I think it looks a whole lot better, and it really does match Estan's style a lot better than this original fence does. Now again, don't get me wrong, this fence, again, I love it. It just really didn't feel like it fit exactly how I wanted it to. I also end up taking rocks and doing a double fence on this habitat because people are annoying and they will try to touch animals unless you specifically prevent them from being able to do so. So I did go ahead and make a double fence out of rocks, because even with this fence and then the fence that I have that I replace it with, people could totally reach through or over and try to reach out and touch the tortoises. So I wanted to make sure that that double fence was there in order to protect them. But here's me making that little second fence. It has a lot less symmetry and just looks a little bit more rustic with these rope pieces and the rocks on the bottom. I'm really happy with how it turned out. Now looking at it as the final product in the exhibit, I don't think that I could have done anything else. I think it fits absolutely perfectly. Other than that, in the exhibit itself, you can see that I have already finished, but I made them a little pool so that they can go in and kind of get water and stay hydrated. They're not going to necessarily go swimming, but they do need a clean source of water in order to drink from. And that's basically it. The only thing that I, for whatever reason, don't have footage of is the little shelter that I put on the outside of their habitat. It might potentially have gotten lost in the footage of the next exhibit that I make because I didn't really take a break in between. So if I'm editing that next one and I see it, that is where it went. But it was a really simple little shelter that I just made out of the corrugated metal roof pieces and then the kind of rustic rod pieces that came with the Australia pack. This is a relatively short video as we are almost done. I said in the beginning, this really only took me about an hour and a half, and I just was like in the mood to build for a tortoise or in the mood to build for a small species, not an exhibit that was really over the top. I actually, when I first got into Lost Creek, I thought I was going to build a much bigger, more grand habitat. And I did save that footage because I think I will end up implementing what I got started on into another one of my projects. But it just didn't feel right to get into Lost Creek as the smaller zoo. Well, I mean, in size, it's huge, but to me, it still has a very small zoo kind of feel, especially with the entrance. And it didn't really feel right to add some big, grand, almost modern looking exhibit because I didn't want it to look like it was pasted in from another project. Again, I'm really trying to just mesh this and almost make it look like Estan built it when he originally built this front entrance area. So you guys can let me know how I did and if you think that it fits in well enough. I mean, obviously we do have very different building styles, but I did do my best to try not to just come in and build something completely different. I think it's fun and challenging for me as a builder to try to match somebody else's style or at least kind of build something that goes cohesively with it. These little raised planter beds are kind of my way of adding detail as well. As I mentioned, the tortoises would kind of eat or stomp anything that's in their habitat, as we kind of read in the information as well. So I really tried to incorporate some detail by adding these raised beds. These are things that the tortoises would not be able to reach. And so there can be some greenery and some detail. That's the same thing that I did with adding the flowers on the other side of the rock wall for them, in between them and the guests. Again, just so that there's some detail and something to look at. Just adding a couple little enrichment items for them and then going through and adding the final little details. And then we're pretty much done. We're going to go on to our little glamour shots, our little B-roll, and see the exhibit. I hope you guys enjoyed a little bit of a shorter video. If you did, you know what to do. Go ahead and leave a like on the video, comment down below and let me know what you think. And if you're interested in more Planet Zoo content, you can hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on anything. I have a whole bunch of fun stuff in the description, including links to my social media accounts, my Etsy store, and our Discord. So if you're interested, go ahead and check those out. And until next time, I will talk at you guys in the next video. Bye!